live this evening, but we will be taped for rebroadcast. So I need to ask if anyone's making a recording of the meeting this evening. All right, first item on the agenda was a continued public hearing for Masad Family LLC. Is there a motion to reopen this?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. By way of explanation, the applicant had actually asked for a continuance to our next meeting in light of Margaret Washburn's indication that it's difficult to look at the wetland right now with the snow cover and so forth. And they had asked for the continuance, and since we didn't have an opportunity at the last meeting to talk about the reports that we've gotten from Margaret, or the last report from Mr. Kowalski, or the ruling that came down that day from DEP Legal, I had hoped to have an opportunity to have a dialogue tonight, and if we didn't reopen the hearing, we couldn't have a dialogue. So I had asked for an opinion from the town clerk relative to the open meeting law. Could we reopen the hearing for discussion in light of the fact that the applicant had asked for a continuance and would not be here? And the response from the town clerk was, you can reopen, but you must let them know that you're going to have a discussion. And it's up to them whether they choose to come, and they did come tonight, so thank you. But that's the reason why, and I'm glad you came so that we could have, otherwise we're still up in the air and there's no discussion. And before I forget, I just heard today that you guys withdrew from the planning board without prejudice, and I was just kind of curious as to why and when.
Well, we were at the meeting. Basically, the planning board was, we might say tired of waiting for us to complete with the conscom, and we didn't want to, and there was some discussion, right, about them closing you or requiring you to withdraw.
They had made mention before that, it's kind of going round and round, and they just wanted some kind of answer. And we weren't prepared to give that answer without speaking to the board here for us, So, in light of what happened in the last meeting, we had to continue it on. So, we just felt that they actually recommended it, and we went forward with that.
So now you have to refile with them all over again?
Yeah.
And that means fees all over again and hearing all?
No, they were.
They're going to waive the fee?
They were willing to waive the fees, yes.
Okay.
They were willing to waive the fees.
Okay. And when did you do that? It wasn't at the planning board meeting last night because I was watching. So was it 2 weeks before?
What aspect?
Mid-February?
I'm sorry, what reference to what?
What meeting did you? Which planning board meeting was it when you withdrew? Was it just?
It was
two
last
weeks?
night.
I think it was just
Last
last
night?
night.
Yeah, it was last night, yeah.
Okay. I missed the first 10 minutes. I guess that's what I missed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know until today, and I was curious.
Oh, yeah, it was last night.
Okay. All right, anyways, at the last meeting, Mr. Kowalski handed us a report. We had Margaret's report. I'm sure by now you've digested what Margaret had to say. That night I had the ruling from DEP Legal, from David Bragg, but I couldn't disclose it because we couldn't reopen the hearing. So basically, what he said, and I know you got it the next day, basically what he said is that the litigation group up there discussed it, and what they came up with was that although a certificate of compliance can certainly confirm that a replication area works and functions, it does not mean that just because one has not been issued that a wetland replication area is not a viable resource area. So that's what they in essence said. So that being the case, then we're back to the issue of, I think, speaking for myself, we have to decide, we're still left with, is that replication area a functioning wetland or isn't it? Margaret has some ideas here. I'm sure by now everybody's had an opportunity to read the report, but I know you went out there, Glenn, the last meeting that day and dug through the frozen ground to get to your soils and so forth. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. I don't know what the board, I don't think that Margaret went out there, has been out there since our meeting. She didn't tell me that she had, so I don't think that she has.
I don't
But
believe she has either.
You don't think she has?
No.
But in the first page of her report that we had a couple weeks ago, and she had spoken to me on the phone about this, and she had strongly recommended that we wait until we're well into the growing season, like late May, early June, to go out and reassess the wetland in its entirety, the replication area. in its entirety, because that's when you have an opportunity to look at your vegetation, which you're not going to see obviously right now. You also don't get to see the high groundwater elevation. Mr. Bellino had told me the same thing, and actually I had a conversation with Phil Nato, and he reminded me that vegetation is the primary indicator that we need to be watching for, along with modeling evidence of high groundwater. So, you know, I saw your email, and I'm not quite clear where you said in the email that Margaret had recommended that we go out on a site visit between now and March 26th, when the snow cover was off, and her letter says when we're well into the growing season, so I'm not sure where that conversation came from.
If I could.
Yeah.
I told Mike Scott, I talked to Brian Waterman, and Brian Waterman talked to Mike Scott, and Mike Scott generated that letter. There was no discussion between Margaret and I told my office to send you back a letter saying that I did not discuss this with Margaret Washburn about a site inspection with her at all. So
We
Mike was
did get that email.
You did get the
Yes.
email, thank you.
You got the email that I saw the email that there was no discussion, but I didn't see an email, I didn't see a follow-up letter.
It wasn't a letter, there was just an email
From-
telling you that Mike Scott misunderstood
Stood.
what
Right.
Glenn had said about what Margaret said.
How did you come to that conclusion that we were going to have a site visit between now and March 26th?
Yeah, didn't come from us. The conclusion was that when the snow melts, because it was difficult for Margaret, she said impossible to get over there,
Right.
because of the snowbank, and things are melting up, that there would be an opportunity when snow melts, and at the commission's convenience, to go out there and look at whether it be dead vegetation in hydric soils. The clear nature of my report that was submitted 2 weeks ago was that there's non-hydric soils clearly in the northern sector of this replication area. It's between 15 inches and 24 inches down is where you would start finding hydric soils. In the soils above that are 4.4s and 4.6s non-hydric, and that's, once we have the inspection, that'll be indisputable, because there's 5 soil boring locations, and I was just back there today. In fact, there's more soil in my auger in the car like I took the last time, but I decided not to bring it up to you. But to make a case that the northern sector is, everything that's dead in there, the herbaceous layer, is all upland herbs. And you already have it in my reports on what's in there, whether it be the evening primrose, or the Queen Anne's lace, or the black-eyed Susan, and
What I got in from your
Yeah,
report, the
yes.
conclusion I reached from your report
Yes.
was that, and you tell me if I'm misinterpreting, what I got in from your report was you're saying that the northern area isn't going to work, but the southern area could. Am I right? Am I wrong?
No, that is not clear. That's not what I wrote. What I wrote was that the southern area, there are areas that will not meet the criteria, but the center does. If we call the southern area, the replication area, say a kidney bean shaped. If you look at we have a map of it here. It is oblong if we use our hands. It's shaped like this. And in the middle, there's some channels. On the outer edges of that, facing the parking lot, then facing the wetland, the land comes up and it's non-hydric. In the center where she has the channels, where the channels were constructed, there are sedges and rushes. And there's also a lot of that purple loosestrife, which is the exotic invasive. So again, to the left and right of center, you rise up and you're above it's greater than 12 inches to hydric soils or hydrology, or low chroma soils, or what the soils are with a chroma in value of 4.4, 4.3, 4.6. The point being is that if a soil chroma is 3, and here I have a document as to this whole nature also, so I might as well hand it out at this point, because it's just another backup to the document I gave you before, if I could. I have a few documents, if you would. This one, just for the commission's use, it's page 29 of how to delineate a wetland by DEP, and then on the second page is just a Munsell color chart to show that it's not difficult to understand hydric and non-hydric soils. It's purely a function of most of it of color if you're looking at the B horizon. Thank you very much. So what's in the car in an auger that I just augered out of the replication area, there's 4 4s and 4 6s. Colors are described by hue, value, and chroma. The hue 10YR, that's just the color of a 10 yellow red. It doesn't mean year. It means that it's reddish yellow. And then if we look at this chart on the background and accompany it with a chart on the front, and I'll look at mine, you'll see that it talks about, can I borrow this just for a moment, please? Thank you. It talks about on the page 29, I know it doesn't say it, for hydric soil indicators. If we look at it in relation to the color chart, and we've been doing this since '96. I do UNH for 10 years, well, since up there in '96. And the point being is if we look at this chart, these lower colors are topsoils, and so that's topsoils. This is value, that's chroma, and that's just the hue. And normally what a soil delineator is looking for is, well, if you're looking for upland, we look for upland and wetland soils, obviously, to determine the boundary. But when in the soils that we have in the replication area to the north range in this 4, 4, 4, 6 category, generally the transition chip is the 3, so you have to have a 4 chromer and a 4 value and a 3 chromer in order to be in the transition zone. Anything in that 3 chromer is transition soils. It can go either way, upland or wetland. Everything to the left or with a lower chromer is hydric, as long as you're a 4 and above, and everything to the right would be the 4 chromer, the 6 chromer, or the 8 chromer with a 4 value or greater. Those colors are, that's upland soil. What we have, and so if we go out there and auger into the soil, and we're looking at this sheet, because it requires that you have hydric soils within 12 inches of the final surface, or the bottom of an O horizon. That just means organic layer. So if there's a couple of inches of organic, say leaf litter, you go below that, then you start from the mineral layer going down 12 inches, and you have to have hydric soil indicators, or the hydric soils, within that 12 inches, and that's what this sheet number 29 of the book talks about. What we're showing over here in the northern part of the replication area and parts of the southern is, and this is what both Brandon Phaneuf, Eco Solutions, Waterman, and myself, the 3 consultants, looking at the soils in the replication, in your first reports, not 2 weeks ago, but the report before that, we all came up with, and it's clear once we take you, we hope that you come out, that that we have 4 4s and 4 6s with in a 10 hue. Within, that's at 12 inches, 13 inches down, 14, 15, and at one place at 16 inches down you start getting hydric soils. In some other areas it's as much as 20 inches down. That's what this little exercise on these sheets was about. And your question was, what about the southern portion of the replication area? When Mr. Phaneuf and I and Mr. Waterman at separate times, and I was with both of them at both, they didn't come all 3 at the same time, all 3 of us. Mr. Phaneuf met me out there and we looked at it. He did his own report. I'd done my own. Mr. Waterman came in later. He did his own report, as you know, and you all have those. The problem with the southern portion of the replication area is, as we have a low spot in the middle, and as it rises up to the right or left, or southeast to northwest, it becomes drier. The vegetation becomes upland vegetation over there also. So is there an area in the replication that does meet the criteria? Yes. Within the channels of the southern portion of the replication, it does make the criteria as far as soils. They become 4 3s and 4 2s, low chroma with models, as Margaret has mentioned. The models is an older term. They're now called redoxamorphic features.
Yes.
So, but people still use the term model. It just means iron staining. When the water sits high up in the soil, it reduces the iron and it leaves staining within the soils, and those are models or redoxamorphic features. You might see that even still in the DEP's book, they still refer to them as models, oxidized rhizospheres concretions. So it's still a term used. DEP could correct their book, but it's semantics.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree that it takes many years for soils to become hydric in a replication area? or not?
No, this is the one thing I might say on that. With the top 12 inches, which is the new soil placed in there, so normally the replication area is dug down. The first thing that one might do when they're making a replication area, besides the engineer, well, the DEP's book on wetland replication protocol from March 2002 calls for test holes to be dug in the proposed replication area, so you'll know where you hit that water table. So then the surveyors can shoot that grade, and then the engineers can design a replication area that will have hydric soils within 12 inches of the final surface. Because the criteria, you need that hydric soil, that water table there. If you put a non-hydric soil in water table, or a non-hydric or upland soil into the water table, it will start becoming reduced, because low oxygen water, or the groundwater table, does reduce iron. And in fact, if you've seen filled-in wetlands in the past, which I just looked at another one today, you'll see iron bleeding out the toe of the slope of those filled wetlands, because if you fill in a wetland and you put fill on top of that organic material that water table is trying to push out from because it's a wetland, the iron that's still in that organic material, that topsoil of the wetland, still has iron in it. The fill over the top of that material causes the iron to be reduced more, and it bleeds out as a iron stain, and you'll see some oil-looking sheen, and that's manganese. And those are precipitates from filled wetlands. So you're asking the question, does it take years for soils to become hydric looking? If they're in the water, that's if they're in the water.
If you agree with that or not.
If they're in the water table, yes. But if they're not in the water table, such as the soils on the southern, let's just take the northern end of the replication area. One of the photos that Ecotech supplied was the northern end of the replication area. It was kind of curious that they never showed hydric soils, and that's in my report of 2 weeks ago, that they didn't show. If you open that report to the back, you'll see that one page that shows the full.
Unfortunately, I left a lot of my stuff at home.
That's the non-hydric soils, but the last photo it's the next one. It's the next one up. This is the Ecotech photo.
Is that the one with the...
Yeah, where it's very bright. That's
In the
that
photo?
one. This is it right here. This is.
Those look like, those soils look, I thought that they were fine.
What you're looking for soils, when you look across a cut before you do the fill, what you want to see, if you have the rest of the Ecotech photos, which I don't have my full file,
I don't have
you're
them
going to
either.
see grays and whites. What you're normally looking for when you make a and if you look at the rest, you'll see the soil looking grayer and whiter, because iron, when the water table sits in the soil, it reduces the iron and takes the iron away, leaves your soils grays and whites. That's why on this Munsell color chart, these low chroma soils, these grays and lighter soils, that's caused from water sitting in the soil. The iron comes from leaf litter. When leaf litter, as I tell kids, and I do describe this in workshops, if you take a leaf and you put it in a glass of water, put it on your windowsill, you'll see that water turn brown. That's the iron being reduced to Fe+2 ferrous, and it's soluble in that water. If what you end up seeing, so just take the leaf, the iron's coming out of the leaf, it goes into the soil is mineral and organic. The soil, if the soil does not sit in the water table, the iron, that color, will stain the quartz particles and give you your reds and your yellows. If the water table sits up in the soil, that iron, along with manganese, sulfur, and other reduced organic ions, they become reduced, it bleeds away, and leaves your soils grays and whites. So normally when you're doing a replication area, the first thing, if you're digging it, what you're always looking for is at the bottom of the replication area, you're looking for, yes, models, but you're looking for low chroma soils or grays and whites, or something that says, there's the water table. Because if I have you come out, or your agent come out to my replication area, the first thing I expect your agent to do, or yourself, if you follow through this, is auger down 12 inches and see that hydric soil, see that gray and white soil. If you see that, you know that the hydrology that's moving through this soil, that you've now taken the upland soil off, it might have been 3 feet deep or however deep that bank was. When you dig that soil down in the upland to make a replication, you want to make sure that the final grade
of your replication area, because you're going to add 12 inches generally of rich soil on top, you want to make sure 12 inches down you have grays and white soils or hydric soil or water table. It's the same thing. The high water table. What you're seeing in that redder picture is the same stuff that's in my car that I'm showing you here that was what they put the 12 inches on top of. That's color in that photo is 4 4s and 4 6s. It isn't the water table, if you're following me.
So what you're saying is what we're seeing in this photo is just
No.
dead wrong for what we should
Dead
be seeing.
wrong. It's non-hydric soils. But if you take a look at the other Ecotech pictures, you're going to see the southern portion, and you're going to see a lot grayer and less red, because he did get close to the into the water table in the center, right? But on the edges, you're going to also see with my photo exhibit that some edges you're going to see some reds, and you need a wetland to be a wetland when you're augering soils to prove to the commission whether or not, first, yes, you look at vegetation, but also you look today as of June 30th of 95, soils came in, and you look, you auger down, did I hit hydric soils within
But
12
they're not
inches?
the only indicator. You're still supposed to look at vegetation.
And the issue with the vegetation in the
You're going by soils, and that's it.
I know, but the soils are telling you if you have a water table within 12 inches.
So you don't agree with DEP that in order for a replication area to function, that you need to see evidence of hydrology for 2 weeks a year?
No,
don't
you do
with
agree with that. That's of course. But you don't have the evidence of hydrology if you don't have hydric soils within 12
that?
inches.
That's why we'd like to reassess the wetland when the growing season is here, not in the middle of the winter. Don't you
If
think
you,
it's
if you
difficult
need
to
to wait a while to have,
All right.
was I? I'm sorry. Can I? I'm sorry. If the commission chooses to say that they want to wait to see at least through the beginning of the growing season, I believe, although we believe we will wait to do it, to make our proof.
What, I don't mean to monopolize the conversation here, but
Me neither.
how do you account for the fact that in June of last year, Margaret Washburn was on that site, photographed the site, can't find her photos, but observed and documented that the vegetation in the wetland replication area was thriving. And now, not only is it dead, a lot of it's not even there.
Well,
How do you explain that?
we find offense
Yeah, that's,
to Margaret Washburn implying in her letter that we might have stolen wetland vegetation out of this wetland.
I don't, well, hold it.
It's not there.
Well, wait. Time out, all right?
Yes, sir.
I think just kind of taking Ann's point.
Yes. I'm sorry.
There's an obvious inconsistency between Margaret's report and your report. And so if you read them or try to read them consistently, she saw conditions there last summer that don't exist, or you've indicated don't exist currently, or didn't before we had snow and that sort of thing, all right? And so for that reason, because there's an incongruity there, the only logical thing to do is to wait until the snow melts from the ground and we can go out there and we can reevaluate at that time.
Yes, sir.
And actually, she's recommending well into the growing season, which would be, she says, the late May, early June.
Well, but certainly not now. I mean, clearly not now. You know, so
that's understandable.
and again, I mean, I think I wouldn't go as far as you have, Glenn, that Ms. Washburn is making accusations. I don't read that at all.
She's simply saying that what
She
was
saw-
there isn't there.
That's right. She saw things there last summer that apparently are not there now, and you know, there's an incongruity there that perhaps we'll never be able to resolve. So the smart thing to do is to move forward and then wait for the growing season, which will be in the next month or 2 months.
One thing I'll put in here is, in my mind, if there is a section of the replication area where the soils are just not right and the water flow is not right, then in my mind that would lead to a situation where the vegetation that is supposed to thrive there isn't going to thrive, and then it's going to be displaced by vegetation that thrives in the soil conditions that
Invasives.
are there,
Right.
regardless of what was
Right.
wanted to be there. So in my mind, that does make sense. If there is a segment where the soil's wrong, then the vegetation's going to end up being wrong, regardless of what you want it to be.
Right.
Well, and there was another issue with the replication area relative to the soils and so forth. I forgot my point.
I guess the problem I have is
Go
if
ahead.
it wasn't constructed properly in the first place,
That's,
Then why,
well,
why
that's,
are
Here's
we?
the other picture.
well, that's the
for
other
the
issue.
color comparison.
I don't know.
Yeah.
it
There's
seems
another
like
issue too. That's what I was gonna say, was
This
about,
wasn't done right.
they're arguing that there's a mound of soil that was left between the channels and the stream. And Margaret's saying that when she was there last June, there was no mound of soil in between.
I don't know.
And I don't know how long it's been since Ecotech was on the site either.
It was last year.
Because that was another thing, we were supposed to be getting monitoring reports, and shame on us, we didn't follow up, because we never got any monitoring reports on the replication area either.
One other point that I brought up relative to this is Margaret cites a June 19th of 13 in her report. We might say that June 19th, it rained 1 inch of rain, and before that whole month, the wettest month that we've had on the June, if you all recall, because I study groundwater and vernal pools and how much rain, when it rains, the whole thing, rain data, my gate. It rained 1 inch that day, and it was 9.37 inches in that June. June was we had a drought, and then it deluged. So if Margaret did see water on June 19th, as I recall her report stating, and we specifically pulled out the Worcester rain data, it was the most extreme Noah's Ark month that we had all year, was June.
Yeah, the spring was nice and dry.
It was
and
super
then it
dry.
was-
Boosh. So,
So what is your explanation about the plants? I mean, the trees, the woody vegetation that was 6 feet high, where did they come from?
I believe it's still there, because I don't think, I know none.
But
we-
Mr. Faniff said it's not.
No, we say that there's some out there. There's dead red maples. There's and here's another point. The red osier dogwood that was planted out there, that's an error completely, because you called for silky dogwood, Mr. Ecotech did. There's no red. It says 75% of the surface area of the replication area has to be growing with indigenous plant species found from the lost area, and somebody put in, and the predominance of this woody vegetation in there, besides the red maples, is this red osier dogwood, which is not native even to our area. I mean, it's native. You got some over on Breezy Bend Corner in Leicester, but it was called for silky. It's not silky. There is the exotic invasives of Japanese bamboo and the purple loosestrife. And the problem here also with the Japanese bamboo, once you get it growing, you're 4 to 6 feet down was the proposal for Route 12. If you recall, Lynch Construction did it, and the Mass DOT spec on removing that now is 4 to 6 feet. So once we have it scattered, as you're going to see when we go out there, the soil is junk at this point, because otherwise you're just going to have a Japanese bamboo area in another year and a half, because it is that pervasive within both areas, the north and south. So there's an issue with that, and we're going to ensure, as I said in my first report about 4 weeks ago, so if we do get to do this replication, obviously we're going to be looking at the replication soil, ensuring there's no exotic rootstock in it, and then additionally, as we did with Hampton Inn in your town when I did that, we weed out two times a year any exotics coming into the replication, to give time for the native herbaceous layer to grow, so that it's not out-competed by this purple, which does grow rapidly if it doesn't have any competition next to it. In addition, and I know you've heard this before, we do plan on working, and I know Margaret brought it up in her report, well, if you're going to work on somebody else's property, such as Siemens, we want to make sure that then you add that into your notice or describe it. We don't intend any machinery on Siemens property. We just finished a U.S. Army Corps project where we used 45-foot long straps, industrial 4,000-pound straps, and we tied around the Japanese, it was not Japanese bamboo, because that's not what's over on Siemens. It's multiflora rose and Tartarian honeysuckle. We wrap around the stalk and we pull the thing out we pulled this from 45 feet away on this project at Core at Greenbrier. So it's not like we can't do this without staying out of the
But to
wet.
Margaret's point, isn't, the seeds are still gonna be there, isn't it just gonna reconstitute itself?
If you happen to, there's so much work being done on exotic invasives that was at the workshops. Again, I went to some of those at MACC. We plan on, and we put it in our report for 2 years, we're going to do monitoring and continue to remove. Once the natives get back in there, then they have a time and a chance to outcompete the exotics. And there's not that many exotics. They're right at the interface of the wood line and the open line. So those house yards that were up in the back, right at that interface, you get the exotics. But look into the woods. It's native woodlands in there. And if we have the opportunity, we're doing it for DCR now over in Framingham. to monitor, remove, and plant back native, we have something to compete with the exotics. If the commission requires more monitoring for a longer period, in Framingham they required 3 years, then we monitor for 3 to ensure we have it all out and that the natives come back in. It is a way to start combating the exotics, and yes, it does take a lot of work and labor, but it can be done. And my property in Oxford, my 18 acres, is an example of that, because I've removed them from mine and they are gone. And and that's what I've done on the French River. So, I appreciate your time. I'm going to just hand out the rest, because I don't know if you have time for everything I have here, but the waiting till it's, we also addressed Margaret Washburn's concern about the snow. We figured
Yeah,
that
I was
was,
just gonna ask you about that.
we have a signed letter by Mr. Simon, and I have another one from Mr. Masad. Ignorance of the law is not bliss, or whatever.
no excuse.
No excuse, that's what it was. I know, I was. Special condition number 9 says no pushing the snow over in that direction. We have stated, we now understand that clearly. We've also shown, and that the parking lot area, and there's one of these for each one, there's no excuse for this, and there won't be any more of it, and it's signed. And we will move material away, but this is always from that winter of 11, 12, 13, 13, 14, as she cites. This has always been a new car storage area. And that new car storage area is,
That will never happen.
where's the rest of my reports here? Excuse me. The new car storage area will, from now on, or at the time, that is clean snow. Here it is. That's clean snow, no excuse for putting it there, but we can show that the snow is not, and if we go from page to page on this, we show dirty snow, snow with salt in it, snow with dirt in it, snow next to our replication area, the overall replication area. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I got it.
I got it.
What we're saying is, there will be no more, but the snow has been cleaned. No excuse still, I say. But that was never an area that we had traveled ways on. That was an area our storage of new cars, they pushed up the lane so they could get at the new cars. The point is, there's dirty snow and clean snow, and I've been waiting till it melted enough for me to show how clean this snow is, and it has been the same for these years. No, and I still say, they are aware of it now.
Okay.
Did you have it? Thank you.
Board members, comments, questions?
Nope.
I guess do you share Margaret's recommendation, or do you agree with her recommendation about? I know Mike seems to agree with waiting for the growing season to come before reevaluating the wetlands. She's actually even recommending some we might want to consider some reflagging of a portion of. I don't have my notes, but she suggested a portion of that a portion of the wetlands should be reflagged.
Yeah, I think she was stating that the direction of flow that she ran into, she did see, Brian Waterman brought it up to me, that as you're facing up the system
Yeah.
towards Langway,
It seems to have shifted.
it shifted more to there was a shifting of the wetland, a flow path to the right or to the north.
Yes.
And Mr. Waterman, I wanted to make sure that flow path, under our design, the Waterman's design, that we were still picking up the water, and that water would feed our channel system. One other point she brought up in relation to that replication, she did make a point that one of our test holes, because we did go to identify where the water table is, so that our replication area could be adjusted, and it was adjusted down, the Waterman design, just in the last month, after the holes were done in January. But Margaret made a point that one of the holes wasn't overlying the replication area that we proposed, and the reason is, it's a parking lot right there. We're only 15 feet away from approximately 15 feet away from that upper end of the replication area that is to the northern end. But we weren't going to dig up the parking lot, because generally hydrology in 15 to 20 feet is not going to fluctuate. I mean, it can fluctuate over hundreds of feet, clearly, but not generally in 15 feet. So we felt it logical that we just went directly off the asphalt and did the upper hole. The nearer hole, or the southern hole, is over the replication, but the northern hole is just off, again, in the lawn area, so we wouldn't have to dig up that asphalt for that purpose. Those are some of our other points. And I believe I made most of my points of soils and water
She had
table.
another point too. You had said earlier that
Yes.
you, Brian Waterman, and
Equity-
Brandon Fana
Yes, ma'am.
had agreed that this was not a viable wetland. And Margaret makes the point in a letter from Waterman dated July 17th of last year,
Yes.
that Waterman stated that they generally agreed that the wetland area was functioning.
Yes, I asked Brian to comment on that, and it's in your pocket. I said, how are you going to justify you once commenting last year that this thing might be good, and he has a whole email dissertation in your package
Okay.
on how he,
Changed
did-
his mind?
well, he didn't change his mind, no.
Mr. said the same thing.
Well, no, he read Ecotech's report, and he was concurring, basically what he probably shouldn't have been doing. He concurred with Ecotech without looking at it in depth, and he said he walked along the edge. But in those reports, both the Ecotech report and the Brian's report, there is no data points. What I'm suggesting to my client and to the two consultants with me is that we're gonna do test holes both in the north end and the southern. So you'll see TPs, test pits, along with observation plots. That would show, okay, 12 inches of placed topsoil, what's below it. And that'll give you an accurate, it's a regular soil hole, just like you would do if you went in the woods with, to do some testing. And then they'll do a data plot of 5 feet, a 5-foot radius, 15-foot radius, and 30-foot radiuses, but we're not gonna find much in 30 because that looks for trees and vines. So basically, we're going to do test plots of 5 feet and 15 and describe the density of herbaceous layer, what the plant species are that make the criteria for dominance, and and then what's within 15. The soils along, this is a standard BVW data form that you see in your packages from other consultants. We're going to do one for either, I believe it's going to be 2 for the southern end, because we have a wet area and a drier area, and 1 for the northern end. And those data plot and points, soils and vegetation, will be one more piece of evidence, we call it, to give to the commission even before you might get out there, just to say, this is what more information for you. Please come out and look at the replication area.
All right, so you're content with waiting to late May, early June for us to go out there and look at it? Is that what I'm hearing? Because you have a mountain of evidence, and apparently there's the war of she doesn't think so and
Yeah.
you think so, and if you're both basically the same,
Are
we're
you-
gonna go with our consultant, obviously.
course.
Well, Margaret is with DEP Soils, she's certified DEP Soils Evaluator. Are you?
Well, I can say that, no, I'm not, but Brian Waterman is, and also Brandon Faniff is. And that's the
Brian
reason.
Waterman agreed that the wetland was viable.
And he now says it isn't. So also, just like your workshop that you went to,
If I
Well-
could just interrupt,
Glenn,
we're
Glenn.
going around the same
Yes.
tree.
We've
And
heard, I think
we
we've heard enough. I think, we've read the reports. You've been giving your presentation now
Yes, sir.
for, I'd say the last 35 minutes or so.
Yes.
I think it's been very informative.
Yes.
I appreciate the dissertation on hydric soils, I really do. But we have there's a big divide between what Ms. Washburn has concluded and what you have concluded. Clearly.
I just
And-
want to say 3 people
Well, I'm
concluded,
not
not
done
just
yet.
me.
Excuse
Okay.
me, I'm
Yes.
not done yet.
Sorry.
And then, again, she, has quoted Brian Waterman's letter, or Waterman Design's letter of 7/17, which you now say, well, Mr. Waterman has revised his decision or opinion on that. Fine, that's okay, people can change their minds. But because there is so much contradictory evidence here, I think we have to wait. I mean, and it may not be May, Dan, it might be maybe April or May. It all depends
Wait
on
and see.
when we get spring here, and Based on the weather, that might not be until May. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, not just arrival of spring, arrival of growing season,
That's right.
actually getting things moving.
Exactly.
So.
Yes.
Well, if the consultant is telling us to wait till May, early June, I would use that as a guidepost.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, as someone
I'm inclined to
who,
agree too.
you know, we need to rely on the experts, we're not, so it would make sense to me that that is the path that we follow. You know, it's great that we have all this information, which will make for light reading, I'm sure, at another time, but we do have other matters. So if you're content with, and the applicant is content, we need a date to continue it to, and we can move on to our,
Well, I
the
guess
rest of our agenda.
May I just ask one question,
Yeah.
excuse me, I'm not trying to sound rude, I'm very ignorant to all this, and the soils wouldn't really have anything to do with the growing season, would it? I mean,
No.
if the soils are wrong, they weren't properly, you know, laid out and well, I'm just speaking, stop me,
Even
tell
Phil
me to shut up.
Nato, even Phil
you
Nato
know.
said to me on the phone a couple of weeks ago that soils are not the primary indicator of a resource area. It's vegetation.
But there's a lot of evasives in there now, correct?
There are some, yes.
Okay. You know,
But you can't see anything in the middle of December
and I
and February.
completely understand.
You know,
But, you know,
and
we
the
as,
groundwater table isn't up to where it would be during the growing season either.
absolutely, and, you know, we as Diamond, you know, we're just trying to say, like, we're willing to do everything to spec exactly. You can have people watch over us if you want, and move this thing and change a dilapidated road and build a brand new road for the town. And just, and again, I'm just trying to make sense of this whole thing, you know, I'm just,
And you have to understand, with all due respect,
yes.
it's wonderful that you folks are willing to come forward and build a new road for the community. That's wonderful. But the bottom line is that there is currently a road there that has been in existence for 1,000,000 years, not 1,000,000, but many. And it's a viable, functioning road. We do not have to allow the filling of wetland because you want to build this road that goes straight
Ms.
as
Weston,
opposed
please,
to the loop.
we're not filling,
I'm just
we're
saying.
not filling we're moving the wetland.
I'm just saying, the bottom line is that you're looking at it from one angle, we're looking at it from the environmental angle. We're supposed to avoid, minimize, mitigate wetland loss. And it's wonderful, and I don't disagree with you that it's probably safer, it's probably all the things that you said, that you want to have a nice straight road. But the bottom line is that that's not our function. It's just not.
No, but what I'm saying is we're willing to strip it down and do it exactly the way the board wants it, or exactly the way your consultants want to do it, the right way, exactly the way it's supposed to be, and we're asking just to move it a little bit. And we're, you know, it seems like we're just trying to find every excuse why we can't do it, not an excuse, but every reason why we can't do it, and, you know.
Well, wait, excuse me. We've just had the extraordinary situation of your current consultant basically saying that your prior consultant who supervised the work, oversaw it, basically did it wrong. Okay, that's extraordinary. In my, how long have I been here? In my 19 years on the Conservation Commission, I'm not done. In my 19 years on the Conservation Commission, I've never heard of a situation like that before. Okay?
I can understand that, yeah.
What?
He didn't supervise the replication.
We
Brian Waterman did not supervise the
No,
replication.
I'm talking about Ecotech. I'm talking about the prior consultant. I'm talking about the set of experts, HST and Ecotech, that was used by Diamond before Waterman and before you were retained, okay? That's the situation I'm talking about. And again, in my experience, that's an extraordinary situation where you've got another group of consultants basically criticizing work that was done by the prior group of consultants, all right? And again, I would also submit to you that Ecotech, you know, we're very familiar with Ecotech. They appear before us on a regular basis. I personally have high regard for the quality of their work. I think they do good work. So I'm just saying to you, again, I'm not questioning your, you know, I think you've researched this thoroughly. I believe that you know, you stand by your conclusions. But again, looking at the totality of the circumstances, it's an extraordinary situation. That's why, sir, if you think we have hesitation in terms of you moving forward with this, it's in light of the process that's been taking place here. That's all.
I can understand, I can appreciate that.
And I just want to make 2 points. One is relative to Ecotech. Now, at some point, Ecotech has been out of the picture for some time. I don't know how long. So we can't blame Ecotech because
Oh, we're not blaming
something
anybody,
happened to the
yeah.
replication area. And the other point I want to make is, we would not be in this situation today that you're in if you had filed this project as one project 3 or 4 years ago. When you people filed to build your 17-bay service garage, if you had done this all as one project, you wouldn't have made a replication area for the loss of that wetland at that time, and now be asking to fill in the same replication area to build this road. If you had done one notice of intent, we wouldn't be in this situation. It's
We-
your own fault.
We totally agree with that.
I'm just saying it's your fault, it's not ours.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And how, we have waited for you since August until now to continue this meeting, and you're blaming us that we're making excuses?
No, I'm not blaming anybody.
With all due respect, sir, it's not our fault.
Okay.
I'm just saying, it's not our fault.
Okay, but Ms. Weston, what I was trying to say was, we're willing to do everything right and proper, okay, to help better the town, okay, and that's the bottom line. We just want to find a quick resolution to this, because we are spending tens of thousands of dollars trying to make this happen. Okay, we spent a lot of money, and we're just looking for some resolution here.
Okay.
Whether we should even continue
All right.
or not. That's all.
So this is where we're at, and I don't want to belabor the point because we have another applicant here waiting.
I apologize.
If you do not wish to continue, and if the board agrees that you want to look at the wetland when the growing season has come, we cannot continue this if you do not agree. So if you do not agree, our option is to close tonight and make a decision based on what we have and the recommendations from the consultant. That's where we're at, so it's up to you, sir. What do you want to do?
Okay, so our options are, just so we're clear, our options are we wait till growing season,
If that's
everyone
what, if
comes out
there's
and looks.
enough votes here, yes.
if everyone would agree to that,
Mhm.
or the other option is to,
If you don't want to, if you do not wish to wait, then we have to, if you do not agree to that, we have to close tonight, and we'll have to render a decision within 21 days.
Can I suggest that we give him at least 10 or 15 minutes to discuss with his consultant before he makes a decision?
That's fine. Do you
thank
want
you,
to,
sir. Thank you.
do you want to take a break for?
Yes, please, 2
Could we
minutes.
take could I have
I'll
a
make a
motion
motion
to take
take
a
a
recess
recess
for?
for 10 minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted.
Commission. Two last points, and then what we would be asking for a continuance. We would ask for the soonest, as we would not want to just say to a certain date, because it can be warm all of a sudden like it has been, and it could be April. So we want to make sure that the growth layer is good, and we want your consultant to confirm, and the board to say, yes, it's good and growing, but if that's May, that's fine. If it's April, it's April. I would say to continue to a date in the early part of April to make a decision then as to how good things look, and then at that point say, yes, this it looks good or it doesn't look good, so that we have a little bit more flexibility than just May.
So you're amenable to continuing to our first meeting in April, is that what you're
Please,
saying?
please, ma'am.
What day is that?
I don't
I
have.
don't have a calendar with me.
I don't
No, I just realized I had no one.
And,
Magic phone.
That's the 9th.
April 9th?
Please.
I'll make a
3 little
motion.
apps.
I'll make a motion, we continue it till 7 o'clock, April 9th.
7.
Is there a motion, a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted.
All right.
Would you kindly sign a continuance?
Sure, very much. Could I, because that was the vote, but I did say I had two last points.
Oh, you did have two last points, yes, you did.
The two last points was, that although, and you made it very brief, and I'm not whoever did the work, but Ecotech, yes, was on board with HS&T, and you can't blame Ecotech because they haven't been around for quite a while now on this project, but
Right.
they were the people that oversaw the replication area, and the non-hydric soils, which we're going to encounter,
April
would have
9th,
been
yes.
under their preview at the time they dug it. That's just only one point. The second point is, please, if you might not, mitigation, avoid, minimize, and mitigate. The mitigation that we're also offering to the town and to the commission, into the wetlands, is that we're pursuing off-site problems. We have a channel with 500 feet long, with 1 to 3 feet, 1 to 2.5 feet of sand. We're the ones that brought it forward to you. We're working with DOT to have them clean that out. As soon as the snow melts, DOT's coming out, and the only public access point in this town by the Public Access Board is Eddie Pond. I fished it as a kid. There's ice fishermen out there this weekend. It is the only place, again, in town with the Public Access Board for the public to access directly under that program. I want to just please make the point that another form of our mitigation is to work to clean up the sand, which is depositing in that lake all winter long, and it's out there, and we're still going to have a site inspection, hopefully with you people, and definitely with DOT.
And we have that information, and I think we've got it under advisement, and we've continued the hearing, so.
Okay, thank you. That was the only 2 points, yeah.
We have that information from you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
your time. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, you too. Good night.
Thank you.
You all set, Sheila, with
I
everything?
think so, Glenn. I hope so.
Oh, this was what I get yours.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Does that say original?
Yep.
I think
Is that
was
yours, you
mine.
think?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
my
I kind
original.
of thought that was mine, but maybe not.
It is handwritten on it. It's pushed through, so
Okay.
it is. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Joseph Martin in the Packagug Acres Daycare Center. Is there a motion to open that hearing?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Mr. Martin, I want to extend my apologies for you and your consultant for going so long with our prior matter.
What time is it? I don't know what.
8 o'clock, 8:02.
I love it.
Thank you for asking.
That is just such a wonderful spot for it, and it's probably that's what.
Good evening.
Hi, how you doing?
Oh, good.
Thank you,
So
Dave.
we're still waiting, I think, for 6 of them, but that's the ones that
Okay.
have come in so far.
Go ahead.
Good evening, my name's David Feist, I'm the project civil engineer. With me tonight is Joe Martin, the project applicant. I know we were before you, I think, last summer, just with the ANRAD for the intermittent stream that ran through the property. And now we're finally, we had our planning board meeting last night, and we have the plans before you tonight for the notice of intent. If it's okay, I'll just go over briefly, I guess, what we're proposing.
Yep, that'd be great.
So, basically, when we came last year, there's a just to refresh everyone's memory, there's an intermittent stream channel that comes through the property, partially through a 24-inch pipe, and then there's an open channel that comes down through here, and then there's a sort of a buried head wall down here that then ties into a drain system, which then runs down just a little bit to an open channel further downstream. As part of the project, we did, in the drainage report, we had to do a little evaluation of the upstream watershed, just to see what's actually coming through this at the town engineer's request. There's a lot of the drainage, I guess, upstream, the Bryn Mawr Avenue area. I think there's about 37 acres or so, I think, that come through here and eventually tie down to there. In addition, there's some drainage from the street also. Town drainage flows to this catch basin here, and there's a pipe that we believe ties into this channel here. What we're proposing is a 6,000 square foot building. It'll be a daycare center. It'll be a 2-story building. With that, there'll be a front parking area here with some landscaping, and then a side parking area on the side, with a playground area in the rear area here, fenced in with chain link fencing. As part of this, the original site was originally a gas station. The building has been demolished since we spoke last. There's still, this shed is still remaining in the back of the property. As there's really no drainage on the property currently. All the previous runoff used to just run basically towards the site or towards Auburn Street and sheet flowed into Auburn Street. And it's sort of, this property is sort of a catch-all. It's sort of at the bottom, but there's also Putnam Lane has drainage, just runs down. There's no catch basins. It just sort of makes its way through the woods, and eventually the topography kind of shows, there's a low point here where it collects, and then all the Bryn Mawr Ave drainage also comes down through that pipe through here. In larger storm events, we believe, we've been out there in some of the heavy rains last summer, and I know this catch basin just, everything makes its way to Auburn Street, flows down. I know there's an open channel inlet here, and eventually makes its way into the Auburn Street drainage system. What we're proposing is an improvement to the property. It's a mix of new and redevelopment. So as far as the new development portion of it, we want to make sure that we could recharge the stormwater on site and not increase any of the post-development runoff. So what we've done is for the side parking lot area in the building, we're going to construct a shallow stormwater basin. Part of the reason we went with a shallow basin, based on our soil testing, there's a loamy sand in this area. There is, we did test pits here, up the hill here, and also over here. The groundwater table is fairly shallow, is only about 3 feet below the surface. So we really couldn't go with any sort of catch basin system for the side here. So we ended up going with basically have everything, these 13 parking spaces will sheet flow to a gravel strip, which will run into this 12-inch deep basin. It'll have an overflow point here, or a riprap channel, and basically we've designed so all the design storms we won't exceed the pre-development rates. The front parking area, again, all of the runoff used to go towards Auburn Street. With some of the runoff now we'll be able to recharge on site. All the roof drains also will tie into that basin. The front area didn't have any sort of treatment on it, so what we'd like to propose is basically a double catch basin here, a catch basin here to catch any runoff before it goes to Auburn Street. And instead of just discharging it to Auburn Street via the roadway surface, we're proposing to have another outlet pipe near where the 24-inch pipe outlet is. We'll have a HydroWorks water quality unit in order to provide additional treatment in addition to the deep sump catch basins with the hoods. With that, there is a long-term operation and maintenance plan, which is require the biannual maintenance and cleaning of those basins. And overall, all of our design point was really Auburn Street, and with the use of our infiltration area here, we're able to mitigate any of the increases we're seeing for the increase from the building and some of the parking spaces on the side. And I'd be more than happy to answer questions and go over. I know Graves Engineering had submitted a letter to the planning board. I'm not sure if the Conservation Commission had received that letter, and also the town engineer had written a letter.
Yeah, I didn't see the town engineer's letter, but Graves did provide information to us. I was watching the planning board meeting last evening when you folks were there, and I know there was some back and forth with the Graves review and yourself. I was just wondering, have you reached a resolution on all these stormwater management issues? Because those are also part of our...
And as far as the Graves letter, the only really stormwater management issue was in the drainage report.
Yeah.
There's one map which wasn't used in the calculations. For our calculation, it shows because there really wasn't good topography. It's sheet D-1B, and where we were just sort of estimating the area that drains to the 24-inch pipe. Graves' issue was that we just have this one line here, should be shifted over to basically go through where the garage is. The calculations use the previous sheet, which does show the correct drainage line. I think it's just we were estimating it. Other than that, I believe they felt that all of our calculations met the stormwater management standards.
And what was the issue that the town engineer had?
There was one comment towards the end of their letter. They just noted their comment number 16 was a project. They noted the stormwater management report states the work is considered a redevelopment project. Please provide calculations illustrating that there is no increase of impervious area associated with the project. In reading the report, that's a sort of an incorrect statement. Both the first page of the stormwater report and the checklist notes it's a mix of new and redevelopment, and we've supplied calculations supporting our compliance with those standards.
So you submitted those calculations to Mr. Coyle?
They were submitted to the planning board,
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
you know, it's part of the process.
Where it says at the bottom of the intermittent stream, right? Is there a head wall there where it goes under the street?
We believe so. The old plans do show a head wall. The town has some plans, but it's buried under a lot of debris. Part of, we would like to have that cleaned out is, you know, part of the project. And I think the town, talking to Bill Coyle, it sounds like they do that in the springtime usually, because it is part of the, they said that's an area prone to clogging. But if necessary, you know, if we're out there doing the work, if that's something that needs to be
Okay, so
done.
the town's gonna fix that up.
And if
deal
not,
with that.
yeah, we're happy to work with the town on whatever means we have to.
There was one detail you mentioned that you may have misspoken. I was confused. Is you mentioned a gas station. This was not a gas station. It was a succession of restaurants over
There was a
years.
gas
Was there-
station years ago.
Oh, before it was
Probably
like.
before you were born.
I was gonna say, so it was a gas station before it was 6 different restaurants.
Yeah.
Okay. I have zero memory of that ever being a gas station.
Do you know if the 21E was ever done?
Yes, actually, CMG Environmental did a phase 1 and a phase 2, and as part of the plans too, we do know there's some areas of residual impacted soils, and that's one of the reasons we're keeping this whole area here will be paved. And during construction, CMG will have to be on site just to supervise the excavation activities.
Is there an AUL attached to this property?
I'm not sure I can find out, but I'm thinking that there may be.
Okay.
CMG would know better.
All right.
And if not, it would be as part of the process. I know they're dealing with DEP with the remediation aspect.
That's an activity use limitation.
So any underground storage tanks they had years ago, they would have been pulled out
Yeah, but there
years
still
and
may be
decades ago
some,
then.
you know,
Some
residual.
leaching.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Thank
Learn
you.
something new every day.
Indeed.
In your notice of intent, you indicate that you're going to be altering 8 feet of bank and that you're going to be replacing 8 feet of bank. You know, did you have on here somewhere where you're going to, how you're going to replicate that? I didn't see it.
If further details needed, we can provide it. The area in question is just the new drainage pipe that's going to be put in. This is where the existing outfall pipe is here. Basically, we're just going to trench to this area here, about an 8-foot area, put in the riprap outfall, and then fill it back in. If we need some additional detail, we can put in some jute matting, as well as hydroseed or other plantings. Hydroseed's probably not the best on the bank area, but make sure we have some proper erosion control.
Okay.
And I think in the drainage report, I know there are some photos of that area in there too. Just if anybody hadn't seen that area.
I just had a question on the DEP file number. Would they be using the same one for the ORAD?
No, it would be a different phone
Because
number.
they haven't issued them yet. I don't know if they're just slow at getting them out or what.
You might want to follow up and just check with them, 'cause we can't issue an order of conditions until we have a file number from DEP. So you might just want to follow up.
Okay. I know that, I think we just, I know that I appreciate you guys. I think Sheila got us on the agenda. We were able to just meet the deadline. So it's only been, I think, maybe a week or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe
Okay,
they just
all right,
haven't
well, maybe
had
that
time.
was it.
I did get the green card from the central region, so
Oh, okay.
I'm sure that,
Yeah.
I just got that yesterday. So.
Okay, well, I just went online today. There wasn't a number issued. Sometimes they usually email me right away when they issue a number, but I just didn't get one yet.
Oh, and actually, one of the other things too, I should point out, as far as the new regulations, because I remember last time we met, the new wetlands regs for the town hadn't been promulgated yet.
Right.
As part of that, our original design actually had a parking area going up through here, and the stormwater basin was a little different shape. One, we filed like right at the end of January with the planning board, and then saw the February regulations that come out. As part of that, there were 3 spaces here, we're moving back here next to the garage, and just reconfigured the grading here to make sure to provide that 25-foot no disturb zone. One of the things though in this corner here, because of where this drainage channel, where the entrance is, there's also a 25-foot buffer associated with that. So as part of I think our letter, we were requesting, I guess, a waiver, if it would be allowed, just for this corner here where we have, there's existing grass there now, I believe. And there'll basically be a fence as well as the, corner of the playground area is gonna encroach in that 25-foot zone. And again, I wasn't given that, I know the regulations are new. Just wanted to point that out as, I think we may need relief from that.
There's something here I'm a little bit confused by. It looks like you have at least 2 snow storage locations that are within a 100-foot buffer zone.
Mhm.
Isn't that not? I mean, one looks like it's within within 25 to 50 feet, and the other one is clearly within a 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay, is that part of the new regulation also, not within the
Well,
100?
under the new regulations, under the new town bylaw, the buffer zone is now a resource area. It's not a buffer zone anymore, really.
Mhm.
But we generally have a condition on our special conditions that we don't allow it, snow storage within 100 feet anyway.
Okay,
So I had made myself a note anyways. I heard you discussing that last night at the planning board meeting. So I wasn't exactly certain where we were at with that. But do you have an alternate place you could put your snow?
it's a good question. I mean,
there are 2 that look like they're outside the 100-foot buffer zone, but you have 2 others that are clearly within.
I guess the biggest challenge I could think of really is gonna be, given that the front parking area, I guess you would need a front-end loader to take it and move it to the back area here, if you're gonna remove the snow that way. Or I guess if it gets beyond, because I know it doesn't specify, I know like how much snow as far as, but I know if you get beyond, I know the Mass General laws say you have to remove the snow off-site if it starts impeding travel aisles and parking areas.
And
Where
visibility.
you have this being a resource area, and that's a new,
Yeah,
That gets tricky.
yeah,
certainly has.
so,
Something to think about.
yeah, so I'm not sure, definitely would like to maybe have more of a discussion with you on that, get your feelings also, because in this particular case, there's really no.
It looks like it may have to go to the back of the site if that's the case. Yeah, that's
Is there any way you can get a truck into the play area?
taking a bite out of it
Not
from both
necessarily
sides.
on it, but,
But to put the snow back there?
yeah.
It'd be tough only, but I know there'll be play equipment back there as well as some trees. So. And I know as part of the,
Well, this area says grass with nearby the deck. The play area is on the other side,
And then
at
you
least
have
according
the,
to the plan. I
and
mean,
you have-
obviously, I understand during warm weather, it's gonna all be used, but.
Yeah, they
during
go
the
on,
winter-
unless it's really, really cold, they go on almost every day.
Okay.
then you have the 3 parking spaces next to the where the existing garage is at the back, right next to where you have the snow storage areas. I don't know if that could, I don't know if those parking spaces could be sacrificed for snow storage.
Well, it looks like you're just giving the minimum, right? You're required to give 35,
correct.
so they have 35.
So they can't
they don't
sacrifice 3
have
spaces?
the luxury of.
It gets a little tricky in the winter then. I think that's going to be more of a when than if, unfortunately.
I know, because if we get a mild winter, then you don't have as much snow and it may not be an issue.
You
but
can't
it's-
assume that that's going to be the case.
This winter.
No.
No.
And there's no way you could add more parking, right?
It's, given the grades of the site,
It's
as
gotta
well
be
as the
where it is.
stormwater, it's pretty much, yeah, we're limited. It's part of the reason also we preserve sort of the, I guess the southern half of the site, probably with the grades and the vegetation, it would be difficult to build on that side, not impossible, but,
Right.
It defeats purpose too. You don't want more bituminous.
Oh, sure. No, I understand. Just trying to brainstorm some ideas, that's all. Michael, did you have something?
No, I have no other questions.
The snow storage in the back was fine though, right, outside all buffer zones.
I guess the question is whether it's going to be adequate.
Yeah, I mean, if you put one with those 3 parking spots or something, I don't know.
Well, they're required to have all 35 available. They
No,
can't.
no, behind the parking spots like the other ones are behind, just another little There's plenty of woods and stuff too, so I don't know.
Right, I mean, if you don't have
There's-
another buffer zone
There's
behind
places you
there.
could put it, that's all I'm saying, is there's places outside the 100 feet you could dump the snow. But,
Seems like you're pretty fixed on your parking, so.
Yeah, because this layout was pretty much the most, it's the minimal impact we could do and still
Right.
provide, what we need.
Still provide what you had to have.
Now, the state has requirements as to what you have to have for play area and everything, certain square footage for each student, right? And they have, and a certain amount of building space and everything. That's
Correct.
all part of your state permit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard you say last night that this facility will be having 100 children. So it's pretty busy.
Wow.
The one on Jerome Ave, believe it or not, at one time had 76 kids in it. Right now, we only have 58.
Wow. And I also heard you say last night that unlike with elementary school children, when the parent comes to drop off a child, it's not simply dropping it off, it's parking, bringing the child in, signing them in, making sure that, you know, that the teacher knows that they're there. It's not just simply opening the door and the child goes.
Right.
So you're going to need your 35 parking spots, I would think. In the morning and the afternoon.
There will be times where we need all 35. I don't think at pickup and drop off are times that I necessarily would need 35, but that's what the code says for that
Right.
size facility.
Are they all dropped off and picked up at the same time every day?
No,
They're not
no.
staggered?
There's about a 2.5 or 3 hour window in the morning, and about a 2.5 hour window in the afternoon. And we bus a lot of the kids too.
Sure.
Yes, I heard you say last night that you bus about a third of the children.
Yeah.
So that does cut down on the number of parents bringing child into the location.
I think one of the easy things to do is just move that dumpster and have more snow storage back there.
Mm-hmm.
And even too, depending on during construction, I know this area is fairly steep in the back because it's mostly sand, but if some of that area could be cleared out a little bit too.
Yeah.
But it'd probably be difficult, but it's-
Okay. Does anybody have anything else? Is there any public comments on this project?
Move to close.
second.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right, see what you can do about that DEP file number, because, we need to get our order out within 21 days. You can't without that file number. Okay?
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, and I apologize again for keeping you waiting.
Oh, it's not gonna be this color, but that's what it's gonna be.
Oh,
Huh.
Very nice.
very
Interesting.
nice.
We'll certainly improve that area.
Restaurant building up there. Thing is dumb. I know.
It literally was like 5 different restaurants over the years, wasn't it? It's like
It was quite a
breakfast
deal.
place,
Yeah.
different breakfast place, different breakfast
I
place.
do remember that.
Well, Garfield's had it. for a
When was it
while.
a gas station?
I'll be here
40
tomorrow. if you
years
wanna
ago?
talk
In the
about it. They
70s,
make
in the
it
early
Yeah,
70s.
early 70s.
There was also an RV
Open
lot
night.
at one time.
Wow.
Thinking, but just,
I mean, I remember when that market was in Iandoli's, back when Iandoli's was around,
Okay.
but that little market was a satellite Iandoli's, I guess.
Champagnes?
Yeah, it was Champagne
Or was it?
Market for a long
Or
time.
maybe it was Iandoli's after that, before it
Is
was
this your?
Quickie Mart.
Have a good
Have a good
evening.
good
Thank you.
night, thank you.
Okay. Discussion miscellaneous. We left the Auburn Middle School on here in case there was anything that we wanted to talk about. I think Sheila's idea, maybe it's a good idea to keep it on here while they're under construction. And it is Fontaine Brothers, by the way, that's the
Good.
general contractor. They were at the planning board meeting last evening, and they actually asked the planning board to extend their hours of operation, during the construction season. Because it was like 7:30 in the morning during the week, and not until 8 o'clock on Saturday, and they wanted it to be 7 to 5 every day. The same. So they did do that, and they're gonna break ground. They were gonna break ground today.
Look at Cumberland.
I know.
I've
almost
walked
done.
the trail back
Yeah,
there
believe
several
it.
times. There's some flagging up in the woods. I can't quite make heads or tails out of what the flagging indicates because it doesn't seem to be a defined line. So I don't know exactly what the flagging that's up there means.
Where is this, Dan?
This is in the woods to the left of the the water department cart
Okay.
path
Yeah.
road that goes
Oh,
off of the
okay.
parking area adjacent
Okay.
to West Street. But it would be nice to walk through there at some point with an actual map of the plan and see where it actually goes.
Well, they are, as I told you at the last meeting, they are open to us going over there to take a look. They've made themselves available, on evenings, weekends, whenever we need them. They're amenable to site visits, so maybe,
It might be nice to do that after the snow melts, but
Yeah.
before everything leafs out and it's
Yeah.
harder to get a sight line on
Yeah.
things.
It's
Yeah.
all fenced off now, right? They said they were gonna do that.
I haven't been by
Really?
there, but that's what I thought the first.
Wasn't as of
The
a
first
couple
step
days
was
ago.
The first step they said was to put up the fencing around,
I
yep.
imagine we'd have to plan a trip.
Wow, is it going to be fenced all the way across the parking area at West Street?
And they said they wanted to keep people out of there, so,
Yeah. They don't want any liability
Kids.
issues,
you know how kids can be.
On the dirt piles.
Hey, even some adults.
You take one and
Yeah.
pass it.
You don't
Well,
have any access,
that's interesting.
You take one and pass along, that's that
Quick start.
MACC, the new environmental
Oh, okay.
handbook. We can access it now.
Online.
Well, I've got
Oh,
the,
good, okay.
I haven't sent the thing in yet, but when she signs it today, I'll fax it over tomorrow and then,
Thank you, sir.
Got it. Okay, so Magna Vista Lane, we needed to go out there when the weather's,
Better?
yes, thank you.
Okay.
More spring-like.
I don't know.
Better.
We don't have to wait for the
Eye of the
growing season.
beholder.
No snow.
We have Prospect Street and Hill Street. Again, we need to go out there, 33 Appleton, when the weather's better. The enforcement order for the 1220 road reconstruction, it seems as though they don't seem to think that they have an issue, I take it, from those emails.
Jill.
yeah.
I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
I'm trying to write down some of this other stuff.
It's the weather.
Yeah, they seem, I don't know, it just seemed like he's telling me that they really didn't do anything that was out of,
Well, you know what, maybe when the weather is better, we'll need to go over there and take a look as well,
yep.
In the spring.
when the vegetation's out.
I think this is the worst
Okay.
time yet, mud season.
The minutes,
That's right.
the last meeting, we didn't vote on the prior minutes because there weren't enough of us here then that had been there then. So we have February 12th and February 26th minutes.
Someone here.
I wasn't even.
Well, February 12th is the one that Chuck and Dan were not here, Chuck and Dan C were not here.
Make that.
So, but that would still leave the four of us.
Well, actually, according to the minutes of February 12th, Dan C. was here.
I was not.
So maybe it was your
Really? Let
hologram.
me find that, I think.
So that would be the first change to be made.
He's using the Oculus Rift, right?
That's right.
Using his VR goggles.
You were just here in spirit.
I have been accused at work of doing things wrong on
Are you
days
saying
that
he
I
was
haven't been
haunting us?
there.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Was that one correction?
Clearly you put that in there to see if we were reading these. And
Yeah, that was it.
you want to keep us on our
And,
toes.
and you were gone on the 26th, I had that right.
Oh, yes,
See?
I was. Oh, yeah.
Just be glad she didn't write like nyuk 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 right in the middle of it
Okay,
somewhere.
all right,
Hey.
all right,
We're a professional board.
that's right.
No knuckleheads
So,
here.
All right, so which ones are we doing here?
212, please.
Okay.
I actually think that the minutes are fine, except for that one amendment. I would move, unless someone else disagrees, to approve the amendments for February 12, 2014 as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions?
I
Abstention.
abstain.
Okay. All right, February 26th?
Looks good to me.
Yes, the absent Michael Garman, yes. Indeed. Noted.
Those who live in glass houses shouldn't
Pretty
throw
good.
stones.
Pretty good.
All right, so is there a motion on?
I'll make a
February-
motion that we approve as submitted.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay. Sheila, I just wanted to make sure you please put Packagug Acres decision on the next agenda,
Sure.
because we will need to do that.
All right.
If there's nothing else, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.